Okay, so let me see if we can keep the energy up. That's amazing. Well, first of all, thank you all for being here. I would like to take a minute to also extend my gratitude to the board of directors, my fellow board members, to IBM for being a fantastic partner. Round of applause for IBM, please. Come on, right? And for the partnership of making this event hybrid and having an online presence and connection for people, and to the crew that is making great work to our service to be sure that we feel included all over, no matter where we are. Please come a round of applause. So as Yamila mentioned, my name is Alvaro. I am a Latino man. My pronouns are he, him, or él, if you want to go in Spanish. I have dark hair, dark eyes, brown skin. I'm wearing today a black shirt with dark jeans. And I have the pleasure to be with you today. Thank you. Thank you. It is important that we include everyone in our conversations. And what I wanted to do today is something a bit different than we normally do. I normally get the question like, Alvaro, when you and the Microsoft team are talking with our executives, like, what do you talk about? How all these IT projects come to life? What's going on? So we decided to take a different approach for this keynote, and you will give me a lot of feedback, I imagine, and hopefully you like it, and if not, we were bold enough to go and have a different conversation. Because what we wanted to do today is to have the opportunity to have the business conversation, share that with you, so you understand how are we having those C-level executive suite chats that eventually become IT projects, because that's a fairly asked and common question. Is that okay? Everyone, good? Okay, just checking. We wanted to be sure that we keep the energy up. So look, it's not going to be the full pitch. We're going to have two ways we're going to have the conversation. One is going to be supported by data, and the second one is going to be supported by customer evidence. So you can see the difference on the approaches that we're taking. Now, the one based on data is internal research. That will be fine. We have 3 slides that will talk about Microsoft products, I promise, and those are going to be the customer cases because those are the only ones that I can speak with authority and with more public display of knowledge. For all the rest, it's a technology conversation that will take to an IT project. Deal? Okay, awesome. So we get going. So the first thing that we recognize when we're having this executive conversation is, look, the world's still a messy place. Right? And things are getting more complicated, not less. We are coming out of the pandemic. We all believe things will be great. But you look at the slide, right? We know inflation is coming and making, the uncertainty being bigger, company taking different measures, not to mention the geopolitical situation in Europe that is causing an energy pressure, that a currency pressure, you see in most company reports, and not last but not least, we had already pressure on the talent pool, especially for IT, and that is not going to get better anyway. So it's getting tougher out there. So what do we do about it? And how do we go around doing this? Now, what we have learned too is that we learned through the pandemic that technology can be a great enabler of those solutions. That companies can go and get the agility to surpass the supply chain volatility, some of the challenges that we had on how do we modernize, how do we reach, how do we work in a different way using technology. And 69%, as you can see on the slide, of organizations still have plans to accelerate the work on technology. So that's good news for us, right? But that is also a great responsibility. All of us here in the room and online have a huge accountability to our organizations, to our fellow members of the IT market and our members of the community to step up in these times and show what we can do in times of need and in times of crisis. I personally believe that these adverse times are the best, is when our work ethic, our creativity, our, the nimbleness that we have, how scrappy we can get, can make a huge difference at every scale in our lives. Work, home, society. And I think that's an opportunity for all of us. So I would like for us to take these adverse times as an opportunity to grow, to learn, and also make a difference. And I truly believe that for our high-tech family, and in general for the Hispanic Latinx community. Now, the question is not going to be around, does technology has a place? The question is, how do you go about it? And you can see the slide. As we know that technology needs to keep, stepping up and helping, we still have an infrastructure that might not be all modernized. That we know that if we want to modernize, we want to be sure that we're cost conscious, because economies are getting tougher and tougher. And last but not least, we don't want to do short-term moves. We got to be sure that we're doing things that will take us and create a path for the future. Because at the end, it's through innovation that we will see our way through the challenge that we're going today. So we believe that is by creating digital perseverance, enabling technologies that will allow us to focus every company and every group and every unit on the most important outcomes. Not work, outcomes. Because at the end are the outcomes that are going to rule the success or failure of companies, groups, and individuals. And it's by focusing in outcomes and using technology as an enabler to those outcomes that we can really make a difference. And that is a very important change in mindset. Because sometimes we get all hung up on what we do, how we do it, and we forget that, so what? What is the impact that we're creating? And these times are going to keep us honest on are we making the right impact. And again, there's different ways you can have that conversation. You can go and talk about the innovation, the future of work, supply chain, sustainability, cybersecurity. Those are very common conversations. In all of them, you are going to touch topics like the ones that you have in the circle. And again, you can go deep in each and every one of them, and that's a route. We have done that many, many times. But I wanted to take a different approach today and go and cover 3 that are common to every conversation. So I just wanted to be sure that I take you here because this is a very common, and most of you that have this conversation might recognize that the topics and the trends that are very real. But in general, you always talk about 3 things. Let me cover them fairly quickly. First, people. And I mean it. What are companies if you don't have people to run it? And the more you move into the IP world and technology world, it's all about the people. Second is we gotta get empathy for the current times we're living. So it's all about doing more with less. And I see a lot of heads nodding. I imagine people online will be on the same. We get it. Right? And last but not least, it's about trust. Because the more you interweave, the more you create and build your business with technology, the more interdependent you become. Technology is not something that you procure and buy from someone, that you have a relationship that you can cut off and move. It becomes part of who you are as a company. And your faith and your success gets intertwined in a very deep way. It's not a procurement exercise. It's not a transaction. It's way different these days. And we all have lived it. And that's a very high bar for the technology industry, for us to become different and become the partner and the enabler that our customers need. So we want to cover some of that fairly quickly. So people, look, I will try to go very quickly because I think that you will connect with this, but even today, people will see, and if you talk to HR leaders, employee well-being, holistic well-being, is a higher priority than even before the pandemic. And that's not going to change anytime soon. Or taking care of our people will remain a high priority for every company. Now, we, as the employees, also want to be sure that we're not looked like a number, like a piece of a puzzle. We want to be sure that we're identified by the people we are, the individual, the person, who I am, my values, my identity. What do I do to contribute? I want to be seen and recognized as an individual. And those are very important changes in the landscape of the way we treat and engage with people. Now, when you look at it, I need to go one slide, sorry, one click. One more, there you go. So people. So what I want to do is talk about then how do we go around this opportunity, right? And when you look about it, we need to talk about three things. One of them is going to be about hybrid work. The second one we want to talk about is the work that we need to do retaining our people and how do we enable the experiences for them. So when you look at hybrid work, and we release a deep study on this, it's a very important topic because the cat is out of the bag. It will never be what it was before. The world has changed. Great pace of history, chapter closed, new chapter. And there's a lot of debate how this new chapter will look. But in reality, we believe that the problem is that we have three things that we all need to get around collectively as a society and as an industry to get forward. The first one will be over productivity paranoia. How do we embrace people? And number three is how do we keep recruiting our employees? So when you look at the paranoia on productivity, it's fascinating because employees feel the most productive and managers are more concerned with the productivity of their teams. I can see, right? No comments. The prosecution rests. Only with the smiles and nods in the room and online as well. And I get it. Look, it's complicated. But the solution is not around trying to control. The solution is around driving clarity and giving reasons to people to come and meet with each other. We're going to talk about it in a minute. So the first point is clarity. Look, when the numbers, this is a data-driven conversation. You need to move from dogma and beliefs to data. And the data will tell you almost, in a very balanced way that people need to stay remote and people want to come to the office. So you're like, which one is it? It's both. It's both. The question is how. Now, what is true is if you take out the noise and you drive clarity, what is the outcome that you need to drive? What are your priorities? And the most important part of leadership, which is what we're not going to do, people stay longer. Period, full stop. People stay longer. Look at the numbers on the slide. Data is right there. Number two, why does people come to the office? Think about it. Think about yourself. Why do you come to the office? For each other. We want to be with other humans. We feel lonely at home sometimes. We need a change of cast and characters, right? You need a change of scenery. You need the commute. But if you're going to go to the office and get glued to a screen all the time in virtual meetings, it's like, what's the point? Again, it's not that hard, right? We have the answer. And the numbers speak for themselves. So how do we create opportunities for people to be with each other? Now, this one is one that is humbling. It doesn't matter who you are in the company, by generations, by seniority, is very, very clear. One of the biggest challenges that we have today is that people believe that the only way to grow and learn is switching companies. That's a tragedy. Period, full stop. Imagine all the time and energy we put to growing these people. And so they're like, oh, I'm done. I have reached my peak. I need to grow more. Oh, you know what? Then let me switch companies. Do you know everything that is lost with that action? Can we do better? I believe we can. And when you go and talk to people, you can say, look, half the people believe, and 48, 50%, half the people will say, look, I don't think my manager cares. I don't think leaders cares. And 8 of 10 will tell you, hey, I need more skills. This new world requires me to have a different skill set. And the biggest opportunity that we have is to change our culture. The one driver, people say, it's like, if we had a growth culture that give me more opportunities to learn and grow, I will stay longer. So what's the people agenda that we need to have in these times? We believe there are three things, right? Create clarity and priorities, set your if you like OKRs or something like that, be sure that people are very clear what they need to do and what there is okay not to do. Number two is, let's be sure that we create a great social fabric for our people to connect. Let's optimize the local infrastructure for people to be together, and let's optimize the digital infrastructure for them to keep collaborating and connecting where they're not. And that way you know how to apply technology to enable that. And last but not least, it's about continuous learning, on the job, from others, formal learning, ability to experience, using the platform to understand the employee engagement, the employee needs, how can they access all this new knowledge and curricula. That is not only, again, formal, it's also learning from each other, it's learning on the job, and how do you open those rich experiences. That, my dear colleagues and fellow members of the community, is the people agenda. And that conversation then goes and bang, explodes in all these projects that you see. Now you understand why it's so confusing. Because if you start here, you're like, what's going on? We used to do like 2 things. Now we need to do all this. Right? But again, if you think about the outcomes that we need to drive, that's how these projects come to life. That's how technology enables the 3 things that we need to do for people. Is it okay? Yeah? Okay. And online, please keep sending the comments, and they will keep me honest at the end if I hit the mark or not. So now let me go to the second one. Do more with less. And this is right now extremely hot everywhere. Why? Well, because when you talk to CEOs everywhere in the world, things doesn't look like it's going to get any better anytime soon. It will be a challenging market. It will be a challenging economy. Or it is what it is. And we want our companies to survive that and thrive, actually, through that and get to the other end stronger than they were before. Now, if you talk to CFOs, they will tell you, well, that's true. And if you take only one, and I have a bunch of data points, but I use this one because I think this is dear near to all our hearts, supply chain. It's not going to, we believe, still going to be very, very challenging to these new times. So, okay, we get it. It's going to be tough times, and it's going to get in there. So what do we do? And we believe that there are 3 things that we can focus on as an industry that is going to make a huge difference. And it's about how do you focus on speed, on productivity, and increase and more efficiency on the way you use your time. Those are the 3 things. Now, how does that translate into your IT strategy, your technology strategy is, how do you think about time to value? How quickly can you get impact in those POCs, pilots? How do you move from big projects to fast, iterative approaches that will allow you to get in there? How do you move and be sure that you create extensibility and openness in your solution stack? Because sometimes it's not about every layer of solutions, it's how do you weave across the different layers to create a better workflow, a more efficient process, right? And don't think only about horizontal, but also functions that run across in a more effective way. And last but not least is how do you think about your data? Data being your assets. How do you bring your databases together with all the analytics that you need to have and the right governance on that data to be sure that you can do the right things? So eventually you can stack logic, insights, AI, on top of those applications, be sure that you can build that in the right way and you can govern the data everywhere. Huge opportunities for us. Now, I am not going to go into the details of every one of these. I want to show you examples on how that looks when a customer goes through it. So this is what I use the 3 customer cases, okay? So the first one is, hopefully you know this one, Cemex. Is there any people from Mexico in the room? Just checking. People from Mexico in the room? Yeah. Okay, and they're awake. Woof, woof. That's good. And online too. Okay, so long story short, if you're close to Cemex, or you know who Cemex is, you know it's a huge company, presence all over the world, super important in the role they play in the global economy. And the biggest challenge that we have in there was, hey, we were running a critical mission system, SAP, fairly well known in the industry, right? One of the leaders in the industry. But the way it was configured had huge latency issues, huge challenges, and they needed more agility. So we work with them to be sure that we can move that into the cloud. We partner with SAP, of course. We partner with SUSE, enterprise version, did all that migration, and we ended up improving between 40 and 70% the workloads that we're moving to the cloud for them to be more agile and more responsive, especially thinking about people that are the farther you are from Mexico. Imagine the teams in Asia, the teams in EMEA. That's the type of projects that today are going to call the attention and the priority from people. Look, 70%, 40% improvements. You're doing more with less. Make sense? Second example. ASOS, online retailing only coming from the UK. They are like in 200, they distribute to 200 countries. They have more than 900 products in the catalog. Incredibly successful virtual company. They don't have physical presence. Everything is online. They're growing super fast. Guess what? COVID comes. Crisis happens, and you might find this, something that you might have heard somewhere else. The operations team doing one thing, the engineering team doing another, and costs going all over the place. Have you heard about that anywhere? I know. So what do? You bring them together. You use well-architected practices from Azure. You use the cost controllers. You create DevOps practices. You bring them together, and then you can see the financial impact. We ended up saving 25 and 40% on cost, while keeping the creativity and keeping the agility. That's how you address this type of situation. In this case, fast, very different, right? Fast-growing company, online only, but the huge bridge between operations and engineering. Next example, and this is the last one. NBA, have you heard about them? Oh, this one is super cool. This is very geeky, so work with me, please. No, because, they have like 10 billion interactions a day with people. Right? They have these new systems where they capture like 25 data points a second per ball move. And then they're having like 2 billion data points per season. Now, the challenge is consumer behavior has changed. It's not about turning the TV and watching the games anymore. You want to connect with your clubs. You want to connect with your players. There are different levels of fans of the game. And you want to create a more personalized experience. You want to be sure that people have a reason to come and consume your content, have relevance. So how do you do mass customization? And how do you personalize for every individual, having the same billions and billions of content and data points that you have in the NBA? And that's when we partner and work together on creating AI applications using a whole different set of developer abilities. In weeks, we got out with the solution that we're doing today and allowing them to have a complete different experience for their fans, increasing the engagement and time to impact. That's the type of projects, again, that in these days are going to make a huge difference for our constituents, our companies, partners, customers, and the society. Okay, going home stretch, last topic, trust. This is an extremely, extremely important topic that is becoming more and more relevant as we go through how technology becomes part of the fabric of business and the fabric of society. I feel very proud of the progress we have made collectively as an industry. There's a long way to go. Long way to go. And think about it. Today, there's no CEO that will not think about, wait a minute, who are we doing business with again? What is our data going to be? What is the security measures they're taking? Compliance, I see all people know it, right? Oh, there's no easy, it's such a strategic decision who do you work with. Beyond if you remember the days when we were pitching product features, and that was the reason why people want to work with you, and then you move to value because the innovation was too fast, and now we're going to culture, principles, values, and trust. Very different conversation for us as an industry. And look, if you look at the customer too, if your customer base is changing, if you have millennial customers, they're like, well, what are you doing for the environment? So like, are your products and solutions sustainable? I don't want to go feed a company that is destroying the earth. How do you tackle the conversation? Extremely different set of contexts to do business, and therefore a different way to think about technology. So you go and say, okay, how do we go around this? Well, point number one, this is about how do you work around the most common conversation in the boardroom, that is ESG, environmental, social, and governance. And how do you connect those conversations with your trusted cloud providers and technology providers to work on? So point number one, that is fairly known to us, cybersecurity. More than 50 different workloads. You need to secure identity, you need to secure data, you need to secure endpoints, you need to secure network, you need to secure infrastructure. How do you do that in a really harmonious way? How do you run across all those elements, the 50 workloads and all this stack, and be sure that you have world-class resiliency in a world where we know that cybercrime and all the related challenges keep growing in an exponential way? Look at ransomware. Who do you partner, and how do you move from best of breed to really end-to-end approach is a huge conversation and a very strategic decision. Point number two is what are the ethics and the stance of this company in the deepest issues? What has happened with them when you have this legal request from foreign countries in a data center and you need to get the data, but you're a US company or vice versa? How does that work? How many standards have this company been certified for? Are they complying with, the different regulations around the world? Are we going to be compliant and properly executed and in front of all the regulations that we have in different places when we move our solutions through their cloud in the different countries, et cetera, et cetera? All those conversations are going to be critical. Last but not least, and going to the last two, that going more on the ESG, is about sustainability. You have, as a company, a new bar for sustainability. We all do. So do you have a partner that can allow you to have the two most important things that you need, which is transparency and insights, in order for you to take action on your carbon footprint and what are you doing for the environment? Because if you don't understand what's going on and you cannot track and measure, for sure you're not going to make any progress. And then every project have, of course, a different implication for technology. Last but not least, we all have heard how even data is a new currency. AI will become the new source of competitive differentiation. But it's such a transformational topic for the society. So how do you think about the fairness? How do you think about the accountability, the transparency, the inclusion, the privacy, the security, the reliability that you need to have in those solutions in order for you to be doing the right thing with that data and those insights as you're going to put that in systems? Huge conversation, not an easy answer. But those are the type of conversations that are sparking technology projects. So remember, it's about taking care of your people, putting your people first. It's about doing more with less, and being sure that you work with people that you can trust at every level, for what you're doing today, for the modernization that you're undertaking, and for the future. I hope this was useful. We believe those are great conversations, and hope that you like it. Thank you.
So Alvaro, I have to tell you, I took like a whole page of notes, right? Because now I feel like I have even more questions. I think we have a whole other, potential future for conversation here, because quite frankly, all I kept thinking about was, okay, we're talking about the people component. We're talking about the infrastructure, the digital acceleration, but there's a horizontal across all of this that I think people always miss, and that's the organizational change management aspect of it, and the big component that plays.
Absolutely.
So this is for the high-tech crew. The next conversation, we need to talk about how the organizational change management that runs across through this, because that's the piece that most companies miss, and that's where the success fails. At the end of the day, 80%, well, actually, almost every decision that we make starts based on emotion. The data comes in afterwards, so that then we can go ahead and either support or substantiate that decision that we already made emotionally. And that's how our leaders think as well, right? Everybody thinks it's the data, it's the data, it's the data. starts with the emotion and then the data. So how do we bridge the quantitative and the qualitative? But yeah, sorry, I just got